Who'd like to start us off with a question? You got one here? Great. You got a question? I don't know this one.
Hello?
Hello, yeah, we're here.
Okay, so our question was sort of how much time and effort should be put into the, I would say, the quality control side in the reverse logistics. You know, there's a lot of talk about speed, maybe intercepting things to divert, but in the reverse logistics, you know, if you even go, for example, reverse logistics of goods going back to a retail store, how much, you know, sort of time and effort can you expect a person in the store to be really sort of spending their time on that? So.
Okay, so this is a good question. So how much time should be spent on quality control? You can give examples of how much you are. So who'd like to pick that one up first? Go. Eric?
I'll take it. So, you know, the exact number, you're obviously not looking for a number, right? But the way that we think about it is, you know, every time you touch the product in these situations, you're losing money. So, you know, when you're thinking about the disposition of stuff that you're, you know, whether it's liquidation or putting it back into the channel or whatever, the way that we think about it is really try and understand the economics of each one of your channels after you've triaged, like truly understand the costs associated and kind of not necessarily focus on the top line recovery that you're getting, but that bottom line recovery. And, you know, I think in a lot of situations, you know, adding value to the product or whatever, touching it, you know, every single time, you know, you can do that and still make more money. But I think in many cases, that's actually not the case. What we're finding with our clients is that they're saying, hey, you know, when this stuff comes back, if I just sell it as is, where is, that's actually making me the most money. So I don't know if that answers your question.
So your argument is the fewer times you touch it, the greater value you're going to get out of it. So therefore, quality control can be a negative, not a positive.
Well, no, just, you know, that's my take on the question, right? Is really understanding the economics, because there's a lot of costs associated, you know, with every aspect of whatever, you know, your reverse supply chain when you're touching the inventory.
Okay. Tobin.
So at the storefront level, there's a couple of, you know, standard questions you always have to ask when items come back. So you've got to do the minimum of asking that. But then when deciding what to do with it thereafter, our system that we provide to retailers really looks at it based off of what the SKU is. So, you know, how expensive is the item, what condition is it, and then based off of that information, we figure out how much it's worth on all the different dispositions. So how much could you get if you restocked it, resold it, you know, sold it for parts. And then based off of that, it determines whether or not to touch it farther. So one item might come in, and if it's under $20 an open box, it might say, don't touch that again, put it to a wholesale channel and sell it to flea marketers. Or another item might come in, and it's an expensive laptop that is open box, and it'll say, you know, take it through diagnostics, wipe it. Maybe there's a piece broken, but it's still worth enough. It says repair it and then resell it. But it really depends on the specific item and the condition that it comes back in. And so the key to that is knowing data and information about what your returns are worth when they come back in different conditions on the different markets, and making sure to match how much labor and information and how much labor you put into that with the outcome to get the highest net recovery.
So it's applying product segmentation on the reverse side as well.
Yep.
Just trying to depends what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. One item might make sense to touch 5 times. Another item you want to, you know, touch only once and never again. Or not even have come back. You know, some items might be a $10 open box item that someone's going to ship back to you, and your system will say, just keep it. Yeah.
It can work another way. Greg, what's your take?
Well, you know, specific to HSN, to Toby's point, it depends on the item. You know, we sell a lot of product where, you know, the value is $20 and less, and we liquidate that to what we call red liquidation, or, you know, uninspected customer returns. But then we do have items that, you know, with a higher value, laptops, electronics specifically, where you want to take a look at that, and it will make sense to inspect it and grade it by, you know, is this going to go back to stock? Is this going to be what we consider an outlet condition customer return? You know, where it has all the pieces, it still functions, you know, it's a good item. So, you know, to the point, I just think it really depends on the item. and the value. You know, you have a cookware set, an 18-piece cookware set, you're probably going to do more damage to it pulling it out and inspecting that. You know, you have a person take a lid out and it drops. So, you know, higher value items and we would inspect, but then the lower value ones we would all do what we call red liquidation or uninspected.
Okay. I'm thinking Groupon is pretty much the same.
Yeah, similar. And I think to take maybe your point about quality control up one level too, a lot of, even in situations where it might not be economically advantageous for us to bring an item back in, if we're seeing quality problems with that in the field, right? So we're seeing a higher return rate than we would have expected otherwise. It's helpful for us to bring it in and get some sort of signal either through Optoro's system or through actual physical inspection of our employees in the warehouse to be like, okay, you know, this was originally sized like a size 2, but we throw on a mannequin and it's fitting like a size 4 or something like that, right? So it gives us an additional point of quality control there, which, you know, we're concerned about getting the most value in liquidation ultimately from our returns, but I would much prefer to just stop the return from happening at all. And so we've really tried to take advantage of our ability to do that in the reverse space.
Okay. Okay. So the very clear answer back to you is it rather depends. Depends on what it is, what the value is, and the value to these guys for actually doing anything with it. Okay, good, good. Any other questions, sir? Where are you pointing?
Oh, I have a question.
You one there.
Okay. So directed towards Tyler. When Optoro gives you, I guess, the disposition, how are you physically and systematically keeping that organized in your warehouse, and sort of tracking that and a cadence of liquidation?
Certainly. Okay, so I'll run through 4 dispositions. Feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything.
Or if his voice goes.
Yeah, exactly. You can supplement me. We have a warehouse, an owned warehouse, right? And then maybe a quarter of it or so is carved out for our return space. So once we intake the product, it gets dispositioned in Optoro's system. Kind of 4 key dispositions we use a lot, which are either bulk liquidation, direct to customer, right? With Optoro system, and then we'll like systematically sell that on a variety of marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, et cetera. Return to vendor, and return to stock, right? So stock transfers then happen to the rest of the warehouse, and those are gone and kind of back in the rest of WMS. But there's a WMS kind of inherent in Optoro's system that helps us keep everything straight, right? So then when we're taking orders for bulk pallets, it'll say, look, you know, go pick these 5 pallets and ship them out today. If we're taking orders for like direct to customer products that they've sold on other various marketplaces, there's a pick list. It works kind of as any forward warehouse would work.
Okay, good. Yes, sir. Just right 2 rows behind you.
So a question. I specifically, geared it a little bit more from the apparel perspective, just because I'm from the apparel, but I also, not just about manufacturing, but I also deal sometimes with liquidation and inventory, and I see how much waste exists in today's world. And I'm wondering in terms of where you guys are in terms of your solution, offering also some social responsibility and sustainability in it, because in a way, also in some industries, the returns is already part of the cost of goods sold. You factor that in, so the vendors are not necessarily losing money here. And it seems like we're, the focus is on the dollars versus literally or finding the right channels for, doing something good.
So, case for social responsibility.
Yeah, there's, you're right. I think the stats are there's 4 billion pounds of waste a year from returns and reverse logistics, just in the U.S. alone. So it is something that, where you see a ton of the waste, coming from in retail.
It upsets, it pisses me off when I see that.
Yeah, a lot of it is there's a lot of systems in place that, require multiple layers of middlemen and products being shipped, 4 and 5 times before they get back to an end consumer. They'll come back from a consumer to a store, to a distribution center, to a big liquidator, to a smaller regional wholesaler, to a flea market, to an end consumer. And it's so expensive that often retailers throw away a lot of cheaper items at a storefront level because it's just more economical, if you have a used t-shirt or something that comes back than having it go through that whole process. What we try to do to help people we actually measure their systems beforehand, so how much waste is actually coming out of your current reverse logistics supply chain, and then we help them optimize it and measure how much product they're keeping out of landfills by coming up with better systems that are directly connecting the product from coming back to either another end consumer or a recycler, so it can get back in the community.
So what kind of levels of percentage-wise are you seeing then of the waste part of returns? Because that number, you know, $6 billion, did you say?
4 billion pounds.
4 billion. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not very much, is it? When you look at the scale of business, it's not very much. No, seriously, when you took the numbers of businesses around what we're doing, it's relatively a small amount.
You know, it's the amount of waste of a major city in the U.S., so
yeah.
it's a decent amount, you know, with a couple million people. I think it's also 1.5 billion gallons of fuel a year that's wasted, so it adds up. Every little bit matters. You know, I think the other thing that people can help do is creating more of a trade-in environment. So when you come to buy your new goods, you're trading in your old goods as well. That's a way to help get things back into the economy, and then making sure those goods, there's companies that are matching them with, you know, either secondary markets in the U.S. or you know, other ones internationally, to make sure those goods get used again, rather than constantly mining materials to create new goods. And then we see people who are being innovative, where they will ship a product to someone, and instead of taking a return, that you can actually use the box. It's called a give back box. So you can use that box again, either to return it, or you can put things back in it that you can send to Goodwill. And you know, the carriers work with give back box to get it to Goodwill locally.
Okay.
On the technological solution, are you guys looking into incorporating some non-profit organizations also as a liquidation channel? Yeah, we do work with nonprofit organizations, and we donate a lot of goods for retailers as well. And I think to reduce waste, you want to be able to donate them from as close as possible. So you don't want something traveling back to the middle of the country and then back out to donation ones. If you can do it locally, because you know it's a cheap used item, you should do that. And then the other one is just trying to reduce returns in the first place. Helps on the waste side, and especially for clothing with e-commerce, there's such high returns. So there's a lot of great companies out there that are working on helping on the sizing issues to help people deal with that. And there's, you know, some big e-commerce retailers who actually are experimenting with drop-off points, where when you come to get your item, you know, say you order 3 shoes, you come to get it, and 2 of them are, you know, the wrong size, you can actually return it there on the spot. So they're building in dressing rooms into some of their drop-off points.
Well, let's ask the two real retailers here from that point of view. So what are you doing to encourage that social responsibility, which is really the question here?
I'll go. You know, I think a big challenge we have is the brands. You know, you have some brand names that are very protective, and they don't want their product out on the secondary market. Really, that's the only waste that I see. We do sell, you know, what we call red clothing, you know, and you know, cover your ears, but I mean, I call it worn, torn, soiled, you know, because we do have times where, you know, we have a 2-pack or a 3-pack of an item, and someone wears and, you know, soils or whatnot the one item, and you still have 2 good items. So we're still reselling that product. We're not throwing it out or anything like that. Again, the challenge I see is with the frontline brand names. You know, they say, some of them say, you know, when you get an item back and it's not sellable, it can't go on the secondary market, and then you're almost required to destroy that item.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we find, Toby kind of alluded to the donate distribution or disposition here too. We end up sending a lot of our stuff to various nonprofits around Cincinnati, which is just across the river from where our warehouse is. So we try to limit as much as possible the destroy. Right? There are some aspects where vendors, unfortunately, say you need to destroy our product, or we're just not going to work with you. At which point we have to do it, and it, you know, breaks your heart to, you know, destroy some of this stuff. Sometimes it's a very small part of what we do. It is like unfortunate waste that we'd love to be able to root out, though.
Eric, are you seeing those primary brand holders doing anything in terms of social responsibility?
Say that one more time.
Are you seeing any of the primary brand companies doing anything about that social responsibility on waste?
Well, again, you know, our take on this is really, you know, kind of the value proposition that we're bringing is, you know, social responsibility through reuse, right? There, rather than throwing the stuff away because there's no value in it, we're providing a solution in our business that injects liquidity into inventory that where it was not previously.
Yeah.
So through reuse, right, is kind of the lens that we see. And we see it across all categories. I would say, you we work with some of the wireless carriers and companies that run trade-in programs for cell phones. And so, there's a lot of sustainability there. Like companies have to be R2 certified to buy, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of e-waste compliance there that is pretty relevant to the topic of sustainability.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from as an individual company. I see that. I'm just simply asking the question about the major brand owners, whether you guys are detecting any social responsibility encouragement by those people in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, Nike, on just how they're designing their products in the first place, is looking at being more environmentally friendly around that, from just producing their products with things that don't create as much waste. We've seen people like Under Armour where they donate a lot of the goods rather than destroying things to protect their brand. They'll donate it to inner city programs potentially. Patagonia is one. They have a link on their site to worn wear, so they're putting their returns back up on their site and selling it to buyers as well. So we are seeing brands leaning into that as well.
Good. So some encouraging moves maybe to make you feel a bit better. So question right down the front here.
So,
hang on just one second. We're just going to get the mic so everybody can hear that.
so one of the moves that Walmart did when it acquired Jet was...
Can you hold it just towards you?
Sure. Is
the other way, that way.
This way.
Tip it towards you. That's it. You got it.
There we go. Okay. So one of the moves that Walmart did with the Jet acquisition was using a methodology where you are preventing some of those things from coming back, like giving people a discount, saying, if you take a 5% off and just say you will never return it, and they're not taking that loss up front, right? It still creates the waste, it still creates all the goods that people don't want, it just doesn't come back to the retailer.
Yeah. So what's your question?
So the question is, for example, do you use any innovative suggestions like that to work with companies to reduce that, in the upstream instead of coming down to the downstream?
Okay. So the question is, do you have any innovative suggestions for these guys to work with them?
Yeah, we provide them with data on that exact thing. So, when to not even take an item back. But then when they do that, they have to also, you have to track that customer to make sure they're not a repeat offender and they're trying to work the system. But 99% of people are typically good. So as long as you have rules in place to find the offenders, that works. But you'll look at the price point and why they're returning it and give a recommendation.
Yeah. So why do you think?
And it's not just, it's cheap items, it's big, heavy furniture items also that are really expensive to move around, where it makes sense to do that as well.
Okay, good. Okay, let's take another question, another topic. Yeah, just over this side here. Can you check it up, pass it to me here? Thank you. Yeah, hang on a minute, come a bit closer.
Hi, how about warranties and liabilities? How is the brand protected through that? What if the user decided, or they use a couple of years, they want to come back to the brand, asking for refund or repair this or that? And also my second question is what are the percentage of these goods having any opportunity to be sold in different territory on the planet, like South America, Asia? What are the percentage of that?
Okay, let's take one question at a time first. The impact of warranties. So presumably you must feel the impact of that somewhere along the line. Perhaps you can share with us a little bit about what that impact is and how you deal with these things. Greg, do you want to start off?
You know what, I'm not really familiar with how warranties impact us. We do have, obviously, some brands that offer their own warranties, but as far as anything specific, I don't, unfortunately, have anything for you.
Okay, okay. From Groupon?
Yeah, a bit more. We do a lot of warranties around consumer electronics, but that's pretty much it. Anything else is protected by the brand, right? A Dyson or a Vitamix, people that we work with have their own warranties. We generally end up routing the customer to them for fulfillment.
So you don't attempt to deal with that in any sense. You'll pass that back to the.
It depends on the product. I mean, if they purchase a warranty through us, then of course we would.
You do that.
Make sure to facilitate that.
But otherwise, does it legally go back to the original brand provider anyway?
It depends on the product, I believe.
Okay. Okay. Do you have an experience of this at all, Tobin?
We do, and it varies depending on the brand. And we work with both retailers and with brands. So we're always, we offer a warranty ourselves for our products that are certified. Sometimes it might come from the refurbisher in
Yeah.
some points.
Yeah.
Other times brands, sometimes products still end up going to them, and some brands will care. It doesn't matter who buys it; they'll cover the warranty as long as it's within a certain time period from the first sale. So we'll see that, and then we'll also see some people want the brands taken off it so that it can't be returned, and they'll know that either there's a mark through the UPC or something done so that the brand is protected.
Is it a sort of a cost that's forced upon you to deal with this?
It does cost money to deal with it, and it just depends
It doesn't
on
really add
what
any
the
value to you
brand
guys,
and the
does it?
retailer want to do with it in order to, do they want to optimize, for highest net recovery, or do they also want to balance brand protection in there? And so, we work with them to figure out what they think's best.
Okay. So Eric, let's start with you on the second question, which was about.
What was it?
The second question was about, so where else is the potential to sell these products that come back, right? So we're talking about South America, other marketplaces.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So again, in our business, right, the buyers in the marketplaces that we operate for our clients are businesses that are going to resell the inventory. So some of our clients require, all buyers to be exporters because they don't want the inventory to be sold in their market, right? So they're exporting overseas, or so in that sense, right? The way our solution works is each seller, each client determines however they want to do business. They write the rules for who can buy from them in their marketplace, and when those companies register and become approved buyers in their marketplace, they write the rules that govern the transactions between them and the buyers. So, each client does it differently, but, this is actually a particular topic where there's quite a bit of variability from one client to the next.
Okay. What determines the variability then? What are their decision factors? Apart from not wishing to cannibalize their own home market,
Yeah.
I presume is one of them.
Yep. Where we found that to be highest is in fashion. So I would say where brand is more relevant to the products that they're selling, but I'm actually really speculating there. I don't know why they're making the decisions that they're making.
More than anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's however they do business, right?
Okay.
So.
Okay. So the answer is yes, it does.
Yep.
From Groupon's point of view.
The only place we've really played kind of in this market is with refurbished cell phones. We actually sell a lot of refurbished cell phones in the United States. On occasion, when we get big chunks of returns, we've thought mostly we return those to vendor now. We have agreements with these vendors to take them back. But sort of as a second option, we've investigated that a bit. There are plenty of companies in the U.S. who facilitate these sort of sales, mostly into Southeast Asia is where we looked. Certainly an option. I think an option with electronics, but not something we've played in too much yet.
Okay. Greg, from your side, as liquidation man?
Yeah, we really don't have too many restrictions on where we can sell the product. Again, the shipping charges are kind of what dictate. For someone to export it, it's quite costly when you're talking a pallet, 5 pallets, 6 pallets. The volume we do, I mean, it's not conducive to putting any restrictions on there, but we don't have a lot of offshore buyers ourselves.
Okay, so no restrictions, but there's a market there depending on the volume, by the sound of it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Other questions? One down at the front here, Branko. Just there.
I guess now cross-border e-commerce is a pretty hot topic in e-commerce. And do you guys have any solution for international returns and how it looks like? What's the challenge and such? Thank you.
So international returns. So rather than selling it off again, what about the international returns? Is that something that you deal with? Tobin?
Yeah, so we work with several folks who don't have return centers in the U.S. and it's too costly to have it sent back overseas. So we'll help them deal with it locally and provide solutions for them, either with 3PLs that are physically handling it, and our software will handle it locally within the U.S., or we have a managed service solution that we can offer them also to deal with that. But we do see that as an issue that folks have, where it's definitely not economical to bring all the way back to China or wherever it may be produced in the first place.
Okay, so dealt with locally?
For Groupon, we're comfortable kind of operating in silos internationally, frankly. Like our Canadian returns are the only exception, I think. We're happy to bring those back in sometimes. But our international colleagues in Europe work with Eric and B-Stock to liquidate their returns at a variety of different centers. But even they try to avoid as much cross-border returns as possible, right? It just makes everything more complicated. So we're happy to operate in those silos.
Okay. Did you listen to the presentation by the guy beforehand called Flo, who was talking a lot about cross-border simplifying these things? That must have been of some interest, I guess, to some people looking at that.
Yeah, you go to Europe and it's a whole lot messier.
Yeah, well, you haven't got to go far to come across another country in Europe, unfortunately. Yeah, we know about that. Eric, cross-border stuff?
Just that it is, we talk to people and it is a problem where, to send the inventory all the way back, it's just too much cost. So what do you do with it? So they're having these centers that are aggregating here in the States or over there where there's starting to be solutions to this problem, but I don't think it's really been solved just yet. But I think people are starting to focus on how do we best deal with this problem.
Is it mostly around the fact that the US is, it's got one very close neighbour, for example, Canada you talked about, makes it relatively easy, but everything else that you get it from China is just too far away to do it, whereas in Europe we are surrounded by lots of other people. Is that why it's not so much a problem here, do you think? Or not something you want to deal with here?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's the cost of freight, right? There's no reason, especially at some of the price points probably that HSN and Groupon are operating at, you're just never going to get economical freight that makes it worth bringing in.
I think what you ought to do, sir, is attend D3 in Europe and ask the same question. I suspect you'll get a very different answer from that point of view. Okay, great. Okay, other questions? I haven't gone much to this end of the room here. Question down this end? Come on, you're talking there. What questions do you have for these guys? Somebody right in the middle there who had one? Yeah, that gentleman at the back there, he likes asking questions. Go on, yeah, what are those two? Ready?
Go long. I thought you were going to punt it there for a second.
Yeah, tempting, wasn't it? They got no questions for us. Okay. Well, gentlemen, let me ask you then, while they're thinking about some more questions with this. What are the biggest challenges you face when you look at these things? Is it how you manage it, how quickly you turn it around? What are the biggest challenges for you of excess or returns? I mean, that's your professions, if you like. What are the real challenges out of this? Who'd like to start? Tobin, what do you see?
Ours are probably getting the retailers to make the changes because they're so intertwined with these, especially the older the retailer is and the longer they've been around and the more brick and mortar stores they have.
What do you mean make the changes?
So they're so entrenched in old systems that are from sometimes decades ago, and it's really hard for them to adjust to new systems and new software because they've built, over time, they've just patched things up again and again and again. So that's one of the challenges we run into. And then because of that, we run into issues with data. So there's a lot of data that retailers have issues with around their products coming back and the content that they have as well. So really helping them to clean up the data and information is a big challenge and also really important. Once you get it right, though, it streamlines things so much and adds a ton of value.
I mean, you could get the impression from this conference yesterday and today that actually there's an awful lot of work going on in this data area that people are doing, but you're actually saying that's still one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a ton of work. People know it. They're focusing on it, so it'll be fixed eventually.
So that's a good thing. So Greg, from your end, what's the biggest challenges you face in this?
There's so many. I think balance is a huge challenge because depending on the time of year, Q4, sometimes it's almost equally important just to move product out of the warehouse in order to create space for new receipts than it is to get the highest recovery. So certain times a year, you're going to sacrifice recovery just for space. If your buyers need to, clear out a certain category in order to buy more, the challenge for me is getting the most recovery in a very, very small window of time. So that's, again, there's so many challenges with this business, but
so do your ground rules of what best recovery is move according to the times?
No, yeah, well, and it depends on the time of year, so, at the time being, I'm in a good inventory spot. So I'm really working and looking at the data and really maximizing my recovery. But I know as I roll into Q4, there will be a lot of surprises that pop up that I'm going to need to move through. And I really won't have the time to gain the most recovery out of it because the space each pallet is taking up is costing the front of the business money.
Okay. So, that's quite interesting because typically, when one puts a KPI on somebody, that's it for the year. Are you suggesting yours moves through the year, or are people just unhappy when you don't get the best recovery?
I can't really answer per se that, but it's forecasting is very difficult. Let me put it that way. It's very difficult because the goal is always get the most recovery, but at times other goals will outweigh or will be equally important as getting the most recovery.
So that's an interesting point about the forecasting. So do you have your own forecasting processes just on the returns and waste and so forth?
As far as liquidation sales, yes. And recovery forecasting, yes.
And how do you go about doing that? Where does that forecasting process start?
I drink. This is what I do. No, I'm kidding about that.
Coffee, lots of coffee.
That's interesting that that's the beginning of the process. Yeah. At the end, I can understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the process is we look at the data of what has been built historically per month or per quarter, just depending on what has sold, and then I get a forecast of what will come to liquidation as far as pallet count, cost of goods. And then I forecast to keep a certain balance in each warehouse every month, and then I need to forecast what recovery I feel I'm going to get for that. But like I was saying, there's times where surprises come, and all of a sudden you have 1,000 pallet spaces you just need to make room for because new receipts are coming in, and it can change the game in the forecast. I forecast multiple times a month.
I bet you do, yeah. Nobody ever said there were no surprises in forecasting. I've got to tell you. Nobody ever said that. What about from Groupon's point of view then? Do you have a similar forecasting process? Do you look ahead and see what might come back?
Yeah, sure. I think especially in the fourth quarter, right? You're moving out your outbound stuff, your sales, and you're preparing for probably starting right before Christmas for us and lasting until the end of January to be full of returns. So if we are occupying one quarter of the warehouse, usually we move to 1/3 or something like that for a month or two.
Okay, so it's something you have to do just to manage your own capacities anyway. Okay, great. Right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Believe it or not, we've gone through the time. It's now 22, ready for the next panel. So everybody, let's have a round of applause for our very fine panelists. Thank you.